lots of results. If I find 10,000 ways something won't work, I haven't failed. I'm not discouraged because every wrong attempt discarded is often a step forward. Luckily, Navy medicine has given us an instruction manual, and Thomas told us many of the ways that don't work. So we don't have to learn everything the hard way, or even the Navy way. When I worked as a Marine repairman with young Marines and recruits and in early infantry training, many of the Marines would come to me because they wanted to quit. And I always gave them a homework assignment to read the poem The Race. Now, the recruit training battalion commander assured me that despite intra-service rumors that his Marines could read as well as any sailor. So I gave them the poem anyway. It goes, quit, give up, you're beaten. They shout at you and plead. There's just too much against you. This time you can't succeed. And as I start to hang my head in front of failure's face, my downward fall is broken by the memory of a race. And hope fills my weakened will as I recall that scene, or just the thought of that short race rejuvenates my being. A children's race, young boys, young men, how I remember well. Excitement, sure, but also fear. It wasn't hard to tell. They all lined up, so full of hope, each thought to win that race, or tie for first, or if not that, at least take second place. The fathers watched from off the side, each cheering for his son, and each boy hoped to show his dad that he could be the one. The whistle blew and off they went, the young hearts and hopes afire. To win and be the hero there was each boy's desire. And one boy in particular, whose dad was in the crowd, was running near the lead and thought, my dad will be so proud. But as they speeded down the field across a shallow dip, the little boy who thought to win lost his step and slipped. Trying hard to catch himself, with hands flew out to brace, and amid the laughter of the crowd, he fell flat upon his face. But as he fell, his dad stood up and showed his anxious face, which to the boy said so clearly, get up and win the race. He quickly rose, no damage done, behind a bit, that's all, and ran with all his might and mind to make up for the fall. So anxious to restore himself, to catch up and to win, his mind went faster than his legs, and he slipped and fell again. He wished that he had quit before, with only one disgrace. I'm hopeless as a runner now, I shouldn't try to race. But in the laughing crowd he searched and found his father's face, that steady look which said again, get up and win the race. So up he jumped and tried again, 10 yards behind the last. If I'm going to gain those yards, he thought, I've got to move real fast. Exerting everything he had, he regained 8 or 10, and trying hard to catch the lead, he slipped and fell again. Defeat. He lay there silently, a tear dropped from his eye. There's no sense running anymore. 3 strikes, I'm out. Why try? The will to rise had disappeared, all hope had fled away, so far behind, so error-prone, a loser all the way. I've lost, so what, he thought, I'll live with my disgrace. But then he thought about his dad, whom soon he'd have to face. Get up, the echo sounded low, get up and take your place. You were not meant for failure here, get up and win the race. With borrowed will, get up, it said, you haven't lost it all. For winning is no more than this, to rise each time you fall. So up he rose and ran once more, and with a new commit, he resolved to win or lose, at least he shouldn't quit. So far behind the others now, the most he'd ever been. Still he'd given it his all and run as though to win. 3 times he'd fallen, stumbling, 3 times he'd rose again. Too far behind to hope to win, he still ran to the end. They cheered the winning runner as he crossed the line first place. Head high and proud and happy, no falling, no disgrace. But when the fallen youngster crossed the line last place, the crowd gave him the greater cheer for finishing the race. And even though he came in last, with head bent low, unproud, you would have thought he'd won the race to listen to the crowd. And to his dad he sadly said, I didn't do too well. To me you won, his father said. You rose each time you fell. I'd also like to relate a story of a young merchant from Boston who in 1849, I think was that Commander Holder? Was that when, were you around then? Or no, I wasn't sure. As the story, unfortunately, Commander Holder and I go way back. We probably knew each other when we were lieutenants, so we won't have to say when that was. As the story goes, he was caught up in the fervor of the California gold rush. He sold all his possessions and to seek his fortune in the California rivers, which he was told were full of gold and gold nuggets so big that you could hardly carry them all. He was also told that rent was cheap and there was no traffic jams. So he went, and day after day that young man dipped his pan into the river and came up empty. His only reward was a growing pile of rocks. Discouraged and broke, he was ready to quit, until one day an old experienced prospector said to him, "That's quite a pile of rocks you're getting there, my boy." The young man replied, "There's no gold here. I'm going back home." Walking over to the pile of rocks, the old prospector said, "Oh, there's gold, all right. You just have to know where to find it." He picked up 2 rocks in his hand. He crashed them together. One of the rocks split open, revealing several tiny flecks of gold sparkling in the sunlight. And noticing the big leather pouch the guy had fastened to his waist, the young man said, "I'm looking for nuggets like that you have stashed in that pouch there, not just tiny flecks." And the old prospector extended this bag towards the young man, who looked inside, expecting to see several large nuggets of gold. He was stunned to see that the pouch was filled with thousands of flecks of gold. The old prospector said, "Son, it seems to me you're busy looking for large nuggets that you're missing, filling your pouch with these precious flecks of gold. The patient accumulation of these little flecks has brought me great wealth." Well, some of you may know that I'm a football fan, and while I certainly hardly tell anyone, my last job in the Navy was to serve with the Naval Academy sports team. And, I'm sure we'll have time to talk about this after, in case you haven't heard it, right? My favorite was the football team. And when I first was introduced to the players, I was a little confused and a little concerned. I looked at them and, my word, I was bigger than most of the football players on the team. And so when we'd warm up before a game, I would kind of marvel at how much bigger the other players on the other team were. And then the head trainer would remind me, "Oh, that's just the other team's kickers and quarterbacks." So needless to say, I packed a large medical bag. But despite their diminutive size, Navy football is a very successful program with a long winning tradition. 2 reasons for their success, besides great team physician, of course, was A, they did the small and simple things that were required of them, and they committed to their cause and their teammates. Ken Niumatalolo was the head coach, and he would ask everyone before the game if they were all in, and he would ask them to put something in the team box to, represent their commitment to the team. The medical team had a tradition of having Snickers bars at halftime. Just don't want to, make a bad mistake out there. So I would reluctantly contribute my candy bar to the all-in box. But luckily, we also had a tradition that on the plane ride home, you got Dove ice cream bars. So I'm afraid after many Dove bars and 4 years at the Naval Academy, by the time I left, I think I was the biggest man on the team. So success in our calling, just like our home, is not really manifest by great or heroic deeds. Just as Navy football doesn't win by great deeds, but by slow and pretty steady progress down the field. It often mainly requires that we're only able to stand and say, "I stood the watch." My great-grandfather was a poor and humble man from the highways and the hedges of Norway, but he answered his call of faith and came to America. This was overall a small and simple thing. Yet if we trace forward his decision and look at those lives that have been changed by him, of this man answering his call, his descendants now number over 5,000 citizens of this great nation. An aircraft carrier full of descendants in just 5 generations. Just think how wonderful it is to know that because of this man, there's 5,000 skanky people all over this nation, right? So just a few years ago, long after antibiotics were discovered, it was my first day of internship, and I was so excited. I was a real doctor now, and I couldn't wait to start healing people. With the kind and wizened attending physician by my side every step of the way, that first day, well, was very exhilarating. Then the first night came, and I was on call and in charge of the pediatric ward and the newborn nursery. With no more attending physician anywhere in sight. Trust me. I think the only people praying harder that night than me were my patients' parents and perhaps the nursing staff, probably too. I have learned, I hope, much about healing since that first day as a physician. I have learned that healing is a process of restoring and becoming whole. I have learned that I do not have as much power over this process as I thought and hoped I would, and that my patients must take an active role in their own healing. And I've come to realize also that this process involved in physical healings mirrors in many ways the healings that's required of us in difficult times of our lives. Yes, healing can hurt some, and I'm often asked by patients before I'm about to do a procedure, a injection or a shot or stitches or something even much less pleasant than that, if it's going to hurt. My standard answer is, I've been doing this for a very long time, but if you relax, take nice slow breaths, stay calm, and don't move at all, it's not going to hurt me one bit. So life at times can hurt. You may not get the first choice of your orders or career paths. You might have to deploy again or be separated from your family once again. Perhaps that special person did not have the same opinion of you that you think everyone else has of you. Or sadly, maybe this is the best you're ever going to look. Well, so is all I can say to you then is remember, Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories. Its capital is Ottawa. Motion is lotion. Ice is your friend. Concentrate the glory and spread the blame. So if we don't try, we're sinners. If we don't persevere, we're quitters. And if we don't allow others to try and help them along the way, we're just hypocrites. Great things are wrought through simple and small things, like small flecks of gold that accumulate over time into a large treasure. The small and simple acts of kindness and service will accumulate into a life filled with greatness. As my dear mother always said, it will all work out on the end. And if things aren't working, then it's not the end. So please get up and win the race. May God bless your families and your patients, and may God bless the PA class of 313. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Stanky. I'd like to introduce the class leader, Officer Candidate Bill Gallagher, who will present the Preceptor of the Year Award.
Each year, the graduating class votes on the preceptor who they felt helped them the most. This year, our class has chosen Dr. Skanky. The class would like to recognize your unwavering dedication to medicine and the contributions you have made in our training towards becoming board certified